All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the second warm-up live in here. I'm very excited to be here with all of you. Welcome once again to the second day. If you are excited, please let me know on the chat right now where you're connected from so that we can welcome you. I know there are a lot of folks from all of over the US that joined us in the first day, and today we are going to get started. And today is a big day because we're going to discuss and cover, do a lot of hands-on on Terraform and all of that. All right. If you're here for the first time, welcome. We are going through a warm-up week for the intensive cloud training. Free intensive cloud training is going to happen next week. All right. So if you're not registered yet, please register for free by clicking on the link on the description of this video, or the link that my team is going to share with you on the chat room right now. Okay. And then also, please go ahead and share this YouTube link with your friends, with your colleagues, somebody that you know that would like to learn more about Terraform, because today we're going to do a hands-on with Terraform from scratch. And then finally, you're going to understand what is infrastructure as code and why it is so important, especially if you want to work with multi-cloud and DevOps and be among the best and the highest paid in this market. All right. So with that, without further ado, so let me share with you what we're going to cover today. All right. So first of all, just a quick recap. This is a warm-up week, as I told you. And yesterday, if you have missed the first live streaming that we did, which was a toolkit of the multi-cloud and DevOps professional, you still have time to go there on our YouTube channel. After this live meeting, you can go there and watch it. And today, Tuesday, we are going to do a hands-on with Terraform and AWS. You're going to understand what is Terraform and how it's going to help you on your career. All right. And then also during the whole week, we're going to have more hands-on. On Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, you're going to do hands-on with Docker on cloud. You're going to also do hands-on with Kubernetes on cloud on Thursday. And then finally, we're going to wrap up this week with hands-on with Terraform and Google Cloud. Right? Today, we're going to do hands-on with Terraform and AWS. But given that we are in a preparation week for the intensive cloud training, which we are going to implement and do the migration from scratch, based in a real-world scenario to multiple cloud providers, to a multi-cloud architecture, we're going to be covering Terraform with 2 different cloud providers that you can understand how it works. All right? And with that, as I told you, today is a day which we are going to discuss more about Terraform. All right? Terraform, and I'm going to do a hands-on with you all. I'm going to show you how you can provision infrastructure with Terraform on AWS. Okay. So with that, if you are excited, let me ask you something. If you are excited to what we're going to cover today, please go ahead and smash this thumbs up button. If you can, give me a thumbs up so that I can see you. I can see that you are excited to, do this hands-on with me, and can help me to understand if you guys are, enjoying the content or not. And also it helps to show this live streaming to other folks that might be interested as well. All right. And then also, please consider subscribing to our channel as well. If you didn't, that we can notify you whenever new content is released. Okay. So with that, guys, let's go to the content. And today, as I told you, we're going to do a hands-on with Terraform and AWS. And then I just wanted to spend 5 minutes just covering a few concepts in here so that you can understand when we go to the hands-on. All right, can we do it? So that's good. All right, so let's move forward then. So basically, first of all, what is Terraform? Okay, I want you to understand what is Terraform. So Terraform, as you're going to see, is an infrastructure as a code tool, IAC. You're going to see a lot of companies referring to infrastructure as code using the IAC. Okay, so it's an IAC tool that lets you build, change, and version both cloud and on-premises resources. Okay, so basically when we are discussing on cloud computing and provisioning resources in the cloud, okay, you can do it in a few different ways. You can do it going there on the console and clicking on the buttons and provisioning the infrastructure in that way. You can also use the CLI tools out there to help you to provision the infrastructure in the cloud using the CLI, right, the command line interface, or you can use a infrastructure as a code tool to help you to provision that in a much more powerful way. And that is exactly what the companies are doing right now, okay? You're going to understand more as we move forward. But one thing I want you to understand is Terraform is completely cloud agnostic. Why do I mean by that? So basically, Terraform is one of the tools that are available right now to help you to provision infrastructure in a fully automated way. And Terraform works with every single cloud provider, with the most relevant cloud providers, right? So it's completely different from a few infrastructure as a code services that you might see out there, right, that work with just one or two maybe cloud providers. Okay, that's not the case with Terraform. That's why it is so powerful. It is completely cloud agnostic. It basically means that you can use Terraform to provision infrastructure across the most relevant cloud providers in a multi-cloud architecture. Okay. The second thing is Terraform uses a declarative language, which is the HashiCorp configuration language, the HCL. Okay. And then this is completely different from programming. All right. So a lot of people get confused with that, thinking that in order to use Terraform, they would need to program, they would need to code. And that is not true. The reason for that is because Terraform is going to use a declarative language that is going to look something like that. And then you're going to understand a little bit more as we go to the hands-on part. But, you know, it's basically a way that you can describe to Terraform how you would like to have your infrastructure provisioned. All right, very, very user friendly. You're gonna understand that, and I'm sure that you're gonna love it. Okay, because I love Terraform. It's a lot of fun. Wow, I get very excited when I talk about Terraform. My gosh. Anyway, so let's move forward. And the other thing is Terraform is completely agentless or masterless, right? So masterless. So basically it means that there are a few tools out there that needs to have some sort of agent installed in order for that to work, right? And there are a few other tools as well that would need to have a master server running somewhere in order to the tool to work. That is not the case with Terraform. It's completely agentless and masterless. So it runs independently. Okay, and then you're going to see that right now. And then one of the reasons that I'm covering a lot about Terraform today is because next week, when we go to the free intensive training, we are going to use Terraform to provision the multi-cloud infrastructure. Okay. But given that the intensive training is going to be intensive, right? I'm not going to have a lot of time to cover the basics, the fundamentals like I'm doing right now with you. Okay, so that's why we are doing this warm-up lives, this preparation lives that you can get ready for the next week, right? And the other thing that I want to share with you is a few user cases with Terraform, okay? So the number one in here, the first one is, of course, as I already mentioned, resource provisioning on cloud providers, okay? So basically, Terraform has a component which is called provider, which is like a plugin that Terraform uses to connect to the cloud providers, to AWS, to Microsoft Azure, to Google Cloud, to our cloud infrastructure, and to many others, to establish the connectivity needed to deploy the resources inside of a given cloud provider. Okay, so because of that, Terraform can be used for multi-cloud deployments. In fact, that is exactly what you're going to do in the intensive cloud training. Okay, where you're going to do a real-world cloud project using the two different cloud providers. Okay, and the other thing is Terraform can be used for resource provisioning in non-cloud environments as well, such as VMware, for example. Okay, so Terraform is so powerful that you can use it for both cloud environments and non-cloud environments, which basically means that Terraform is the perfect tool for hybrid cloud environments, where you have some workloads running in a multi-cloud environment and some workloads running in a private cloud, in an on-premise environment, for example. And also, you can use Terraform and combine that with other tools, such as Ansible. That's something that I've covered a little bit during the Toolkit live, the first live streaming that we did. If you didn't watch, you can go there and watch that. And also, you can use Terraform to provision Kubernetes, for example, right? That's something that we're going to cover in other live streamings here in the next few days. Okay, but those are the major use cases with Terraform. And then how Terraform can help you on your career. Okay, very important that you understand that, so that you know why you need to learn Terraform and how that's going to be helpful to you. First of all, Terraform is one of the main tools in the DevOps universe. Okay, so when it comes to provisioning infrastructure in the cloud, Terraform is for sure the number one tool that big tech companies are using out there to provision infrastructure at scale. Okay, including myself, when I was still working for Oracle in Silicon Valley, working with big projects, we used to use Terraform to provision infrastructure for our, American customers, for example. Okay, so basically, if you want to, be among the best and work in high-paying positions when it comes to DevOps and multi-cloud, Terraform is a must. Okay, because you're going to need to understand how you can automate this process in the cloud. And then the second thing is Terraform is part of the scope of the professional who works with cloud, right? So you're going to see that the majority of the time, Terraform is going to be used to provision cloud. And, if you are doing cloud without Terraform, without infrastructure as code, probably you're not doing it seriously enough, right? So the way that the companies, they provision the infrastructure, they do it using infrastructure as code tools, not manually most of the times. They do manually only for testing purposes, only for small things. But if you are talking about enterprise scale, you need to use the infrastructure as a code tool to provision those environments. Okay, so that's why it is part of your scope if you want to be part of this market. And then the other thing is Terraform is widely used by large companies, as I told you. The big tech companies and big companies, enterprise companies around the world are using Terraform right now to provision their infrastructures. Okay, so if you want to work on those companies, guess what? You need to know Terraform. And then finally, Terraform is the evolution of the manual tasks. Okay, as I told you, Terraform is gonna easily replace the manual tasks when it comes to provision workloads and working with automation in the cloud space. Okay, so again, those are the major points that I see Terraform helping you, especially on your career. And how does Terraform work? All right. Before we go to the hands-on part, I want to show you how Terraform would work, and then we go to the hands-on. Okay, I want to spend more time on the hands-on today. So basically, the way that Terraform works is Terraform has the configuration files, and those configuration files will have, in a declarative way, the description of the infrastructure that you would like Terraform go ahead and provision that for you. Okay, so you're going to put inside of those .tf files the configuration that you would like to have in the cloud space, right? In the cloud environment. So let's say that you would like to provision resources on AWS. Then you're going to put that description inside of these TF files these TF files, and then Terraform is going to go there and deploy that to you. Okay, so that is how it works. So basically, the configuration files is the first component, and then once the configuration files are built, what's going to happen is Terraform, which is a tool, which is, a binary that can be installed on your computer, on your local computer, and then it's going to also run, in different operating systems, not only Windows, it's going to run in Mac or Linux, it doesn't matter. Once Terraform is executed, Terraform is going to look for those TF files, going to read those, and it's going to understand what you would like that Terraform do, right? That Terraform can do in the cloud, so that it can understand the resources that you are asking Terraform to provision, right? So basically the way that it works is it's going to look for those TF files, it's going to map out whatever you would like Terraform to create in the cloud space, in the cloud environment, in the cloud provider. And once it goes and provision those resources in the cloud providers, it is going to go ahead and register. Okay, it's gonna record the state of whatever resources got provisioned locally in a file called TF state, right? Terraform state. Okay, and then this file is gonna have the state of your infrastructure provision in the cloud providers. All right. So that's why when you need to provision a new infrastructure in the cloud, you can go ahead and execute the Terraform once again, and then Terraform is going to look at the state file and see what is already there in the cloud, and then if it's already in there, it's going to skip and it's going to only provision whatever is new in the configuration files, so that it can maintain the proper state locally as well. Okay, so the bottom line is Terraform is going to look to the configuration files, .tf files. Then once it finds them, okay, once Terraform finds them, then Terraform is going to go and read those configuration files, understand what you want Terraform to do, like provision the resources in the cloud. Terraform is going to go there and provision the resources in the cloud. It could be any cloud provider like you're seeing here, or even non-cloud provider environments, right? So, like on-premise environments, or even different technologies. And once it does that, it's going to record the state of whatever it did in the state file, so that it can be used in the future interactions. Okay, so that's how Terraform works in a high level. All right, does that make sense, guys? Please give me a thumbs up, okay, on this video if you are able to understand how Terraform works, okay, because you're going to go to the hands-on part now. But give me a thumbs up if you manage to work the basic overview on how Terraform works, okay? So now what we're going to do is we're going to do a hands-on with Terraform, and we're going to use Terraform to provision a resource on AWS from scratch, step by step, okay? So first of all, given that I know there's a lot of new people in here that, is still learning cloud. If you don't know AWS yet, AWS is a cloud provider, all right, that, it is the biggest cloud provider that you can use to provision cloud resources, such as compute instances, storage, databases, and many more, okay? Think that AWS would be like a bunch of data centers available somewhere in some location, which are the regions, okay? And you can use AWS and provision the resources and pay as you go. Pay according to your consumption, okay? That is what it is, okay? Let's not overcomplicate things. Very, very simple. And then on the scenario that we're going to do in here is we're going to keep the thing simple, all right? Because I know a lot of you guys are still getting started with that, okay? And I want you to get the foundations first so that we can go to the free intensive cloud training next week, more prepared. And what we're going to do in here right now is you're going to use Terraform to provision a resource on AWS, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to basically use Terraform to, along with the Visual Studio Code, right, the VS Code that I asked you guys to install that. So if you didn't install that yet, please watch the first live streaming that we did, the toolkit one, and I show you how you can download that very easily. It's just go to Google and type download VS Code, and then you're going to have that installed, right? And of course, it's not mandatory. If you don't want to do it, just follow along. That's fine as well. And then we're going to use the VS Code to create the configuration files to Terraform. Okay. And once we create the configuration files to be used by Terraform, Terraform is going to look for this configuration file, it's going to read them, and it's going to use that to provision a new service on AWS. And in our case, we are going to provision a Amazon simple storage service bucket, okay? So for those that are new to cloud, so the S3, Amazon S3, is just a storage service on AWS that you can create buckets, okay? And a bucket, think of a bucket like a virtual folder inside of AWS that you can store files, right? So it's like a Dropbox inside of AWS. Let's make the thing simple, okay? It's like a Dropbox that you can store files on AWS in a very safe way, okay? And you could do this in a few different ways. As I told you, you could do it manually, but let's imagine the following scenario, okay? Imagine that you got engaged to work on this request and your management asks you to provision this resource, not manually going on the console and clicking on the buttons, all right? But they ask you to create that using Terraform so that you can have your infrastructure provision using a infrastructure as a code tool, okay? So that was the request that you have got, all right? And that's exactly what we're going to do. So what we're going to do is we're going to create the configuration files from scratch, and we're going to use Terraform to provision those resources inside of AWS. All right? You ready for that? So please let me know if you're excited. Now let me know in the comments. If you're excited to do this, just give me a hashtag, let's go, and give me a thumbs up as well. Press this like button if you're excited to do it. So what we're going to do now is, let me switch to my screen here to AWS console. All right, so let me switch to there. Okay, I think it's good. All right, so let me go back to my screen. So let me know if it is good in there, guys. I hope it is. So basically, here is the AWS console. Okay, if you are not familiar with that, this is the dashboard for AWS. Okay, so if you don't have an AWS account yet and you'd like to create one, you can create one for free. Just type on Google AWS create account. Okay, and then once you type that on Google, you can just come in here on AWS and create your account. Right? So you can come in here on the AWS homepage and create your account. Okay, so you can come in here and just sign up for free. All right, so I'm already logged in, so that's why it is not showing here for me. But it's very, very easy to create a AWS account. Just search on Google, create AWS account, and then you create that for free. All right. So let's go back to AWS console now. So as you can see, I am already in, okay? And then, as I told you, our request is to create a S3 service, right? And we should do it using Terraform. Okay, if you would go there on AWS console and you would like to create that from the UI, you could do it as well, but that would not be fulfilling the request that you have received to create using Terraform. But I'm gonna show you how it looks like to go to the S3 service. You can just type S3 here on the search bar, and it's gonna open S3. Just click on that. And once you are on the S3, you could, basically come in here on S3, okay, and create a new bucket. Click in and create a new bucket, and you could go there and just create a new bucket. Okay, that would be something that you can do. All right, and then you would come in here and give the bucket name like a folder name, right? That on the example that I gave you, and you could go step by step and provision the bucket manually, but that is not the request that you have received, right? So you have received the request to create that using Terraform, and that's exactly what you're going to do now. Okay, so coming back to the AWS homepage, we are not going to use AWS right now. So now, as I explained to you, we're going to use the VS Code to create the configuration files to provision the S3 service on AWS in a fully automated way. Okay, so how you're going to do it? So let's go ahead and open the VS Code now. I'm gonna open the VS Code. There you go, I'm on the VS Code now. First of all, what we're going to do is, let's keep the things organized and let's create a folder. Okay, so I'm gonna create a folder in here. I'm gonna create a new folder. I'm gonna call this folder as a cloud warm up, for example, something like that, just to keep our files organized. And then inside of this folder, I'm going to basically create a new folder for the today's hands-on. Okay, I'm gonna call this folder as Live 2 Terraform AWS, for example. Okay, so that's gonna be the folder that we're going to use to store our Terraform files that we're going to be creating. All right, so let's go back to the VS Code. Now here on VS Code, we're going to go ahead and open that folder as a project folder. I'm going to come in here and open that. Just go ahead and select this folder and open that, and then you're going to see that the VS Code is going to load that folder in here for you, right? So now what's going to happen is we can keep this folder organized, and then we can store all the files in here, and we can keep working in a more organized manner. All right, so with that, what we're going to do now is we're going to move forward, and the first thing that we're going to do, as I told you, we need to create the Terraform configuration files, right? So we're going to create a new file in here using the VS Code, clicking here on the new file, and then we're going to create a new configuration file for Terraform called main.tf. Okay, so that is the configuration file. That's going to be the main configuration file that we're going to use with Terraform right now. Okay, so there are many other configuration files that you could have, like the variables one, and a few others more advanced, but I'm gonna keep the thing simple right now. You're going to just use one configuration file, the main.tf. Okay, once you do it, it's gonna create for you, and it's gonna load up in here, as you can see. Okay, and now we are going to start writing the configuration of the infrastructure that we would like to build with Terraform. Okay, so let me just make sure that the size is good in here. Please let me know if you can see my screen in a proper size. I hope you can. All right, hope this size is good. So now what we are going to do is we are going to basically start writing our configuration. Okay, and then the first step that we need to do is, if you remember, the first step that we need to do when we are writing a configuration using Terraform, we need to specify a provider. Okay, and the provider is basically a plugin that is going to allow Terraform to connect to a given cloud provider, and in our case we are going to use AWS. Okay, and how how we find that information, right? How do I find that information to start writing my Terraform configuration file? If you ask that question, that's a great question. And then I'm gonna show you now how you can find that information very easily using the Terraform documentation, okay? So this is the Terraform documentation. You can just come to the documentation very easily by going to registry.terraform.io. Then once you get in there, you're going to click on AWS. Okay, I'm gonna do from scratch with you. So I'm here on Terraform on registry.terraform.io, as you can see. Then you're going to come in here and browse providers, and you're going to come and click on AWS. You're going to see this AWS guy in here. And then one thing I wanted to show you is if you look at how many times the Terraform have been downloaded over the time, see it's 1.1 billion times the Terraform provider, that AWS provider has been downloaded over the time, right? It's a lot, okay? And then you're going to basically click in here on documentation. And then once you click in documentation, you are right here on the AWS provider documentation of Terraform, okay? And then here, it's gonna give you an example on how you can write your configuration if you wanted to use the Terraform AWS provider, right? If you want to use the AWS provider with Terraform, okay? Here is a example, and that is something similar. We are basically going to use something similar to that configuration to start writing on our configuration file, right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna basically use this documentation as support, okay? And I'm gonna go back to the VS Code and I'm gonna start writing the configuration that I would like to have, okay? So first of all, I would like to have Terraform block in here, okay? So that is the block that you need to give to start putting the required providers that you'd like to have on your configuration. In our case, we want to have the AWS provider, and then we are going to say basically required providers. Then we're going to open a curly braces in here, and then we're going to say that we want to use AWS. You're gonna use AWS provider, our plugin, and we are gonna open the curly braces as well. Okay, and then here inside of the this block, what we're saying to Terraform is we would like Terraform to use the AWS provider to connect to my AWS account. Okay, and then we're going to now specify the parameters inside of the provider. Okay, I want to have source equals to HashiCorp /AWS. Okay, so that's how I'm telling Terraform the type of the provider that I would like to use, and I'm also going to specify the version. You can specify the version as well, so that you can make sure that your code is comparable with a given version. Right? I'm gonna use the 4.6, and then what we're going to do in here is we're going to basically use the required version as well. I'm gonna basically, after these curly braces, we are going to specify another parameter in here, which is the required version, right? And the good thing about using Terraform with VS Code is that the VS Code is autocomplete some of the known parameters for you, right? So you can just come in here and click on that, and then it's gonna automatically populate for you. Now you're going to say that in my case, I want to use bigger or equal to 1.2.0. Okay, so that's gonna be the required version that I'm gonna use for this configuration. Okay, so that is the first step that we need to do. We need to give the provider, to specify the provider, so that Terraform can understand to which cloud provider Terraform needs to establish a connectivity to provision the resources. Okay, so that is the first thing. Now, the next step that we are going to do is we are going to basically specify here another configuration for our provider AWS, right? We want to basically ask Terraform to use as default a given region on AWS, okay? Because if you remember, AWS has a lot of different regions across the globe, okay? And we would like to ask Terraform to provision the resources in a given location, in a given region. And then we do it by specifying the provider once again. And I'm gonna basically specify the AWS one, the one that we are going to use. And I'm gonna open the curly braces once again, and then I'm gonna pass the parameter in here, region, and the region that I would like to use is the region here in the US, East-1. Okay, so that's gonna be the region that Terraform is gonna use by default to provision my resources. Okay, now we have basically the basic configuration written in Terraform. Okay, and then as you can see, there is no programming coding involved at all, right? It is all configuration. Okay, now let's skip a few lines and we are going to start basically writing the resource block to provision the S3 bucket. Okay, so if you remember, we are not going to provision the S3 bucket using AWS console, but we're going to use Terraform for doing it. So we need to write the configuration now so that Terraform can understand and do the provisioning of the S3 bucket for us. Okay, so the configuration that we're going to write now is the resource, and then it is a block, and then as you can see, it already pre-populate for us. Okay, and then we can click in here and it's gonna open and ask us which is the type of resource that we would like to provision. Then in our case, it's gonna be the AWS S3 bucket, right? AWS S3 underscore bucket. All right, and then here is gonna ask us the name of the bucket that we would like to provision. Okay, you know, the name of the resource in here, we can just say the S3 bucket. Doesn't really matter now. And then here inside of the resource, we are going to actually put the bucket name, right? We're going to say bucket equals to the name of the bucket that we would like to create. So that's going to be TCB. Let's call this as a TCB app dash Q&A dash JR. Okay, so that's going to be the bucket name. And please notice that the bucket name should be unique. Okay, so if you wanted to do it on your side as well, you need to create a bucket with a different name. Okay, otherwise it's not gonna work for you. And also, so basically what we're going to do in here with this block, this resource block, what Terraform is gonna do is Terraform is gonna read this configuration block in here, this resource block, and it's gonna understand that, hey, you want to create a AWS S3 bucket, and this bucket should be named as this name in here, which is inside of the quotes, right? And then Terraform is gonna go there on AWS and create this bucket automatically for us, okay? I'm gonna actually make JR2, okay, which is gonna be a unique name, and that's it. Okay, so that is the basic configuration to provision a S3 bucket. Okay, and now remember, what we are trying to do in here is we are basically trying to write a configuration to provision a S3 bucket inside of a AWS environment. All right, and that is what we are doing with this exercise. Okay, so now that you have the configuration file written, so let's just save that. I'm gonna save this file, and then from here you would have a few different options. Okay, you could install Terraform on your own laptop. I could install Terraform here on the Windows machine that I'm using right now. Okay, if you are using Mac, you could install Terraform on your Mac, even on Linux. Okay, and By doing it, you would need to do some configuration on your local machine to allow Terraform to connect to your AWS account. Do you agree with that? Because think about that, right? So if you are writing the Terraform code locally on your laptop, how does Terraform is going to authenticate with AWS if you don't do any sort of configuration, right? So that's why you would need to install Terraform and install a few other tools, a few other prerequisites, and you would need to go there on AWS, create a user, and configure that user locally on your laptop to allow the Terraform to connect to your AWS account. Okay, that is more, I would say, not complicated, right? It's really not complicated, but it would take a few more steps. And especially for you guys that are still getting started, I don't want to overcomplicate things now. And because of that, instead of installing Terraform on your laptop and running the code from here and doing all this configuration, I'm going to show you how you can install if you want to install. But right now, what we're going to do is, instead of installing Terraform on your own laptop, on your local computer, we are going to leverage a service from AWS that gives you a shell in the browser, a web browser shell, and then we can install the Terraform on that web browser Cloud Shell, and that Cloud Shell is going to come already pre-authenticated, and then you don't need to deal with all these configurations locally on your laptop. Okay, that's what we're going to do to make the things simple right now, because I want you to see how Terraform works and not deal with a lot of configuration steps, to make it work. Okay, but I'm gonna open the Terraform documentation now that shows you how you can install Terraform on your local computer. If you want to do it, take a more complex route, right? I don't recommend, if you are still getting started, I would recommend you doing the way that I'm going to show you to do. But still, you can do it. You can just come in here on Terraform documentation, and then there is an installation guide in here, and then you can install Terraform on different operating systems, right? You can install that on macOS, you can install that on Windows, Linux, and the step-by-step is right here, okay? But what we're going to do is we're going to use the Cloud Shell, which is a service from AWS. It's going to give you a web browser-based shell. It's basically going to be an operating system that we can run commands, and it's going to come already pre-authenticated so that you don't need to do all the configurations to run Terraform. Okay, so let's go there on our AWS console, and let's click in here on Cloud Shell. Just click in Cloud Shell, and then once you click in Cloud Shell, it's going to ask you if you want to launch it. Just go ahead and do it. And then once you do it, AWS is going to start creating an environment for you, okay, so that you can start running commands. It's like a terminal in the web browser, right? Directly inside of your AWS account. And that's very, very cool, because it's like having a Linux operating system available for you in the cloud, and you wouldn't need to worry about configuring your AWS environment locally, your AWS CLI locally, and all of that, right? You wouldn't need to do it. Everything is going to come pre-authenticated when you use Cloud Shell. Okay, so as you can see, it has loaded. And now if you type anything in here, you can see that it's going to take Linux commands, right? So it's going to take different commands in here. I've been using that for some time, but it is actually pretty awesome. Okay, and now what we're going to do is we're going to install Terraform inside of Cloud Shell. Okay, instead of installing that on your local laptop to avoid the configurations and all of that, we're going to install that inside of Cloud Shell. Okay, in order for you to do it, just come back to the Terraform installation documentation, and you're going to come to the Linux option, and you're going to select the Amazon Linux option, okay? Because the Cloud Shell is actually based on Linux, okay? And then you can install packages in here. So we're going to basically use these instructions. There are actually 3 different commands that we need to run in order to install Terraform on our Cloud Shell. Just come in here and copy the first command, go back to Cloud Shell and paste it. This command is going to basically do the configuration on the repository needed to install Terraform. And then the second one in here as well is going to do a little bit more configuration on the repository. You can just copy and paste that once again. All right. And then finally, the last one is going to install Terraform itself on Cloud Shell. Okay, so let me clear the screen so that you can see that. So I'm going to run the install to install Terraform here on Cloud Shell. All right. And then Terraform is getting installed now. So while it is installing, what is the biggest advantage of doing it inside of Cloud Shell? You don't need to, again, deal with the configurations and authentication process that you would need to do when you do it locally on your own laptop. Okay, that is the only reason. But everything that we are doing here would work in your local laptop or on your local MacBook if you're using Mac. Okay, just keep that in mind. All right, so now that we have the Terraform installed in here, so it basically means that Terraform is already available. If you type Terraform, you see that the executable is already in there, right? Which is good. Now, what we're going to do is, given that we have the main.tf file local on our laptop, what we're going to do is we're going to upload the main.tf file to Cloud Shell. Okay, so we're going to come in here in Actions and click in Upload File. And we're going to select the file. Let's go to the folder that our main.tf file is located. Just pick that, upload. And then the main.tf file, if it fails, it basically means that you probably have some file already inside of Cloud Shell. That's okay. Probably I have one file with this name in here. I can just go ahead and remove it. There we go. Now I can go ahead and try again. Upload file and pick the main.tf. Go ahead and upload that. And it should be okay now. There you go. So the file is uploaded. It is already in there. Okay, so if you look and run the ls main.tf, it's gonna be there. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to run Terraform, a few Terraform commands to install, to start the initialization process of Terraform here locally on Cloud Shell, right? So first of all, we need to run the Terraform init command. So what Terraform init command does, it basically downloads the provider files needed to connect Terraform with AWS. Okay. All right, good. So it has finished successfully. So let's clear the screen. And the second command that we're going to run is Terraform plan. Okay. So Terraform plan is basically a command that's gonna give you a picture of what Terraform is planning to do during the provisioning process, right? It's like a dry run. It's gonna show you what Terraform is planning to do, but it's not gonna make any changes at all, right? It's gonna just show you what Terraform is gonna do. So if you scroll up, you see that Terraform is giving us the plan. Okay, so every time that you see this plus sign button, the green one basically means that Terraform is planning to create something, and Terraform is planning to create a S3 bucket on our AWS account, right? So it's gonna connect to my AWS account, and it's gonna go there and provision the resource for me using the Terraform apply command, which is the next one I'm gonna show you, okay? And then if you scroll down, you're going to see that it's gonna give you a summary saying that, hey, the plan is to add one resource, to change 0 resources, and to destroy 0 resources, which looks good. We want to add one new resource, which is correct, right? So let's clear the screen now. And then once the plan looks good, we are ready to apply. And the apply basically means asking Terraform to go there and provision the infrastructure based on the plan. Okay. Once you hit the enter, it's gonna ask you for confirmation. Hey, are you sure that you would like to provision the infrastructure showed in this plan? And then you just say yes. And once you say yes, Terraform is gonna go there and it's gonna create the resource for you. Okay. So as you can see, Terraform says that the apply has been completed, one resource has been added, so it looks good. So let's go there now on the S3 service. Let's just search for S3. Let's open in a new tab. And let's see if the bucket has been created, right? So the bucket is right there, which is good. So the bucket has been created. And as you can see, it's already available, right? So the TCB app Q&A JR2 has been provisioned, okay? So now if you wanted to upload a new file in here, for example, we could come in here and add a new file. It's like a Dropbox, as I told you, right? So let me pick some picture in here to show you how it works. Let me put a picture inside of this folder. I'm gonna pick this one in here. So let me see. I think I can do this one. Yeah. All right. So let's upload the Cloud Bootcamp logo in here, and then here on the permissions, let's just allow public access so that we can access that. Just say I understand and upload that. All right. Once you upload that file, it's like a Dropbox, right? You can click on the file. And if you scroll down, you're going to be able to see the URL, the object URL, so that you can access that from anywhere, right? So let's open in a new tab, and there you go. Okay, as you can see, I just uploaded a image to my S3 bucket that I just created with Terraform. Okay, so if you look at the URL, you see that the URL shows my bucket name, right? The S3 service and the file name that I just uploaded, okay, which is good. So congrats, you just deployed a resource, all right, on AWS, a S3 bucket using Terraform, okay. And then now, let's say that you had a additional request, okay. You just did that. This is the architecture that is up and running right now. But let's say that after you finish this task, your management asks you, hey, the bucket that you have created is actually configured to give public access to everyone, but we would like to restrict that and remove the public access. Can you update the S3 configuration to make this S3 bucket private? And can you do it using Terraform? That was a task that you received, right? Now, what you should do, you should go back to your Terraform configuration files and write, the configuration change that you'd like to make based on that request, right? That's exactly what we're going to do right now. You're going to go back to the VS Code, and we're going to write a new Terraform block to apply this security policy, this configuration change inside of our S3 bucket to do not allow public access on the objects inside of this S3 bucket, okay? I'm gonna show you how you can do it. So let's go back to the VS Code. So as you can see here, we are on the VS Code, and then now you have received the request to basically create this or update this configuration to make sure that the bucket is not public anymore, right? So let me show you that on AWS quickly so that you can see. So if you look at the AWS bucket right now, let me go back to the S3 service real quick, okay? I'm going back in here, and I'm gonna go inside of this bucket, and then if you go to permissions, you see that it says that the objects can be public, right? So it basically means that it allows the objects can be public inside of this bucket. Basically means that anybody can access the files inside of the bucket. And then here, the block all public access is off right now. Our mission is make this not public and make this one in here to become green, to become on. It basically means that we're going to block all the public access, and we should do it using Terraform. Okay, so the way that we're going to do is we're going to basically write a new configuration in here inside of Terraform configuration file, which is going to be a new resource, and it's going to be basically the AWS S3 bucket public access block. And all of that, guys, I'm getting from the Terraform documentation, right? The one that I just showed you in the beginning, okay? I'm looking at that and creating my own configuration. That's how you create Terraform configuration. You don't need to memorize all of that. I'm looking at the Terraform documentation right now, and then you can do the same thing when you're creating your configuration, okay? And this one is gonna be the S3, I'm gonna call the name of this block S3 block, because we want to block the public access. Then we're gonna open the curly braces, and then inside of this one, we want to block the access, the public access on the bucket that we just created. So we're gonna give the bucket, and we're going to basically refer to the bucket that we have just created, right? We're going to give on this parameter in here, saying, hey, which bucket I would like to block the public access. I'm gonna give the reference to the bucket that I just created. It's gonna be the AWS S3 bucket dot. This is the type of the resource, and then now I'm gonna give the name of the resource inside of the block in here. It's gonna be S3 bucket, S3 bucket. Okay, and this parameter in here is gonna look for the IG. So I'm gonna put the IG of this bucket. Just type dot IG, and what's gonna happen is this resource in here, this block, is gonna affect this bucket, because we are actually passing the bucket, the AWS S3 bucket, as a resource dot the name of the resource inside of our Terraform configuration file dot the IG, which is the IG of this bucket, right? So it's this one in here is a reference for this whole block, okay? So this is all in the Terraform documentation, guys. I'm not recreating the wheels in here, okay? Very, very simple. This is just configuration. Then I'm gonna skip a few lines, and then I'm gonna put the policies in here that I would like to enforce, right? So I want to block the public ACLs, the access control list. I'm gonna say true for that. And then I want also to block the public policy. I'm gonna say true. The next one is gonna be ignore all the public ACLs. So it basically means that that file that we just uploaded, if you remember, we just uploaded an image to our S3 bucket, right? And that file, if you remember, we gave the permission to be public so that anybody could access that file over the internet. But we are going to actually ask the bucket to ignore those public ACLs, access control lists. And when this policy takes effect, then it basically means that that image is not going to work anymore to the public internet, because there will be an ACL blocking the image from viewing it in a public way, right? Meaning from the internet, okay? So then finally, we are going to restrict. It's going to auto load, restrict public bucket equals to true. Okay, so that is what we're going to do, right? Then we're going to come in here on file, save the file. There you go, just save the file, and then you could have two different options to transfer this configuration to Cloud Shell. You could basically go there and upload the file, or you could copy and paste and put that inside of the main.tf file on Cloud Shell, right? What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna basically replace that file on Cloud Shell, okay, just to avoid issues. So I'm gonna go back to Cloud Shell, and I'm gonna basically come in here, type clear, and then I'm gonna remove the main.tf file, the one that is already in there, because I want to replace with the new one that I just created. And I'm gonna come in here in actions and upload file. I'm gonna pick the file that I just wrote, main.tf, upload that, and should be there in a second. It's uploading, there you go. Now if you do a more, type a more on this file, you should see that the file, the updated file is already in there, all right? And then now what we need to do is we need to run the same process again. We should run the Terraform plan, okay? And then the Terraform plan is gonna basically look at the local state file from Terraform. If you remember, we have a local state file here on Terraform, right? It does have a local state file already in here. We have the S3 bucket that we just created, right? And then now Terraform is gonna look at the state file and it's gonna see, hey, the S3 bucket is already in there. I don't need to create that again. I'm gonna just go there and create the bucket public access block policy as I'm getting requested in here. So that's all that Terraform is gonna do right now, okay? So I'm gonna just type clear now, and I'm gonna type Terraform apply, okay? So question to you guys, once I hit Terraform apply, what do you think that's gonna happen? Is Terraform going to create the S3 bucket again, and it's gonna go there and change the policy to public, or is Terraform going to only change the policy to from public to private? What is your guess? All right, let me know on the chat room right now. So I'm gonna hit enter. I just hit enter, as you can see. All right, and then it's saying that the Terraform is gonna do this change in here. It's gonna create this block. Okay, I'm gonna just say yes, and there you go. So looks like it just ran successfully. So now if we go back to the bucket that we just created, right? So if you see in here, it says that the objects can be public and the block all public access is off. Let's see what's gonna happen when we refresh it. So let's see if that changed or not. And there you go. As you can see, now it says that the bucket and objects are not public anymore, and it is blocking all the public access, which is exactly what we wanted to do. All right, so congratulations, guys. You could go through the process of creating the configuration files with Terraform from scratch, right? And you could basically go through the process of creating and deploying a S3 bucket on AWS and changing that resource using Terraform. How cool could that be? Please let me know if you enjoyed that. Put that on the chat right now. If you like that, just put that, I enjoyed it. I like it, something. Okay? And that's it. Very, very simple, right? So that is exactly what the big companies are doing out there. Of course, that in an enterprise scale. But now imagine we just created a S3 bucket. But imagine you working in big projects and doing the provisioning process of not only one S3 bucket, but doing it for hundreds of S3 buckets or hundreds of virtual machines without need to going in the console and doing it many times, clicking here and there and all of that, right? So that's why the big companies are using Terraform for those matters, right? For those tasks, and that is pretty amazing. Okay, so give me a thumbs up on this video if you enjoyed that. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go back in here on Cloud Shell, and we're going to destroy the infrastructure that we just created. Okay, so we're going to just type the Terraform destroy command. It's going to be Terraform destroy, and the Terraform destroy command, as the name suggests, is going to remove the Terraform infrastructure for us. Okay, so it's going to basically do it. Okay, but before doing it, so let me go back to the image that was on the S3 bucket. Let's see if the image is gonna show up now. Let's just refresh it, and there you go. As you can see, the image returned access denied because we are not allowing public access to this bucket anymore, which is exactly what we were looking for, right? So once again, congratulations, because now you have added some cloud security knowledge to your belt as well. Okay, so coming back to the Cloud Shell now, when you type the Terraform destroy command, as you can see in here, so Terraform destroy, where is it? Yep, Terraform destroy, there you go. This is the command. This is going to remove the infrastructure. Just say yes, and Terraform is going to go there and it's going to remove the infrastructure for us. Okay, so basically you might get an error message saying that the bucket you're trying to delete is not empty, and that is completely expected, right? Because Terraform is not going to delete buckets that will have files inside of it. So what we need to do is we need to come in here on the bucket, list the bucket, and delete the file first. Just come in here and delete the file. There you go. Just remove that and come back again and run it, and it should run out because the bucket's gonna be empty. Right? Just say yes, and there you go. The resource has been destroyed. Okay. So that's it, guys. Very, very simple. And then now you are able to understand to do it in a hands-on way, the deployment process, the provisioning process of an infrastructure using Terraform. All right. So that is the foundational knowledge that I want you to have for the free intensive cloud training next week. Okay. Because as I told you, next week we are going to do a hands-on project, the deployment process based in a real-world scenario, and we're going to use Terraform to provision the environment. But at that training, I'm not going to cover step by step as we are doing here. Okay, so that's why we are doing this week for you guys, that you can get ready. All right. So again, if you enjoyed that, give me a thumbs up here, like button on the YouTube. Let me know if you enjoyed that. And also, I'm gonna give you an extra gift for you guys. I'm gonna leave on the description of this video the notes that I have used to go through the process, right? All the hands-on process that you can do it on yourself as well, in case if you want to do it. Okay. And finally, again, if you are not yet registered for the free intensive cloud training next week, just go there and register yourself now. Go on our video description, and also I'm gonna ask my team to basically put the link on the chat for you as well. Okay. And finally, if you have any questions about what we have done in here, okay, just go there and ask the question right now on the chat room. My team is gonna be there for a few more minutes to take your questions. Okay. So with that, guys, I hope you have enjoyed it, going through the process of Terraform fully hands-on, so that you can get ready for next week, because it's gonna be exciting. All right. So thank you so much, guys, for being here. And tomorrow we are going to have another warm-up live where we're going to cover Docker with cloud, right? You don't want to miss that, because if you want to be among the best and highest paid, in the multi-cloud and DevOps environment, you need to understand Docker. And that's exactly what we're going to do tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern Time here on our YouTube channel. All right, guys? Thank you so much for being here and see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.